which is the sort of part of like with our youth worship things, a lot of it was like, we'd have ones that went really, really well. And then we'd have some that didn't go so well. Like it didn't really work. Right. And my role at the time was like, we're doing it again next month. Like we're doing another one. Like we don't have to do the same one, but we're doing another one, and not allowing you to kind of hit a dud and then want to give up. Like, and not that, I don't know that you ever necessarily said that specifically to me, but there was sort of a part where your energy would go, you know, after you have a dud, your energy is naturally lower. And so you're like, and my job was to like ride out the highs and lows. I was the consistent one to say, nope, like we still got to do youth worship next week or next month or whatever it would be. And you're like, and sometimes, I mean, there were days where it was like neither you nor I had an idea how to make this month work. But the relentlessness of those days forced you to try. And I think sometimes the best ones come out of this idea that like, it wasn't a fully formed idea when we sat down because we didn't overthink it. But there was a spark of inspiration there, and we are in a place like, I mean, that's the beauty of teenagers. Like, if a thing sucks and you admit that it sucks, they'll move on from it. They don't get hung up on it. No one's like, oh, darn, like, why are we giving up so soon or something? They just move on. And so, and the beauty of the youth worship thing from a youth minister, like, adult perspective was I'd talk to a kid and some kids would be like, I didn't like this month. And I'm like, don't worry, next month will be totally different. Like, if you don't like this one, hang out because it'll change.
Exactly.
Like, there'll be another one that you might really like. And that's so true. Like, there were some kids who really liked the quiet weeks that were kind of like solemn and melodic and were kind of dark and mysterious. And others were liked the dancing kind of like really up high energy praise stuff. And you're like, well, don't worry, they all kind of come back. And
I am so thankful for those experiences because there's a number of things. But the first one was this idea of I learned not to be invested in the thing. Like I was never invested in like this song or this style. It was all invested in like, how do I create a space for people to encounter the Spirit?
Yeah.
And when it succeeds, great. And when it doesn't succeed, back to the drawing board. But that freedom of you being a stabilizing force and saying, we're going to come back.
Yeah,
again.
We're going to do this again.
Right. It was like this idea of, it gave me courage to not stop reaching, because your natural inclination is if you reach for something that's maybe out of your wheelhouse or maybe out of your comfort zone, to pull back a little bit. And
there's this part of like, I mean, from a musical perspective too, you were not the musician you are now when you started.
Not even remotely.
And some of that was like, but you trusted me enough to say like, no, you don't. Like, I still remember the week you walked in and you're like, I'm going to play guitar this month. And I was like, he can play the guitar. Like, he'd only ever played the piano up until this point. And I was like, okay. I mean, like, because there's this sort of part of like, you and I both knew if it didn't work, like, you weren't going to do, you know, it was like, and so you just, there's a nice part about like I know there's going to be another week. It's one of those things. I had my preaching professor used to say that like, don't try and preach every sermon in a week. You've got 40 years to preach sermons.
Yeah.
Gotta be side by